Morning River Deck up here 17. We have a great show for you tonight. I missed you guys the last 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and get right back into it. No, get into it by looking back at the news of the week. You get it, we do it every week. Dwayne Haskins will wear number 7 next season after getting permission from legendary Washington quarterback Joe Theismann. It is a very rare instance of anyone in that organization being respectful of someone's history. Kevin Durant said Tuesday that what James Harden does isn't cheating and that it's actually clever, which is also what Tristan Thompson says about what Tristan Thompson does. Giants GM Dave Gettleman, why did I just say gentleman in my head? Told a reporter that a fan at a bagel shop approached him about taking Daniel Jones with the 6th pick and said, quote, "Dave, great pick." Yeah, it's actually a really good story. You can read the whole thing at thatabsolutely-didn't-happen.com. The NFL said this year's draft in Nashville was attended by a record 600,000 people over the event's 3 days. But to be completely fair, 500,000 of them were just trying to get to their bachelorette party. The Orioles allowed a record 73 home runs before May 1st, breaking the previous record of 50. The Orioles have been responsible for more bombs than Brendan Fraser. And he can't be mad because I said his name right. A horse named after Colorado Avalanche captain Gabriel Landeskog finished 2nd in the Bachelor Stakes on Saturday. But it was a nice moment afterwards when the horse went over and shook the winning horse's hand. It's a thing they do in hockey. A Florida judge again blocked the release of a surveillance video that allegedly shows Robert Kraft engaged in a sex act at a massage parlor, thank God. Something tells me that they're just gonna jerk us around for a little while before anything is finally released. Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey was at the team's off-season workouts and showed off his new gigantic ripped arms. Finally, a story about someone in the NFL getting jacked that doesn't make me want to die. An excited Josh Rosen met with the media in Miami on Monday after his trade to the Dolphins and said, quote, "It felt like I got drafted twice." Is that an option? Asked the entire Raiders draft class. The Seahawks took DK Metcalf in the 2nd round of the draft and released a video of him at the Combine meeting a shirtless Pete Carroll. Previously, the only other franchise that encouraged topless interviews was the Dallas Mavericks. I can make that joke. And lastly, the halftime show during Game 2 of the Sixers-Raptors series was something right up my alley. I wasn't rooting for anyone specifically because I didn't have a dog in that race. Or in my house. I really need to do something about that. Moving on to our main story tonight, folks. The NFL draft was one of the biggest stories of the week. You know, it's that one time in a football player's career when they pretend to like Roger Goodell. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Not pretending to like Goodell, although that is kind of crazy. The fact that it had our attention. Here we are in the middle of the NHL and NBA playoffs with like 4 whole months until the NFL starts. And yet we were glued to a screen for hours to see which vaguely recognizable guy our team was going to pick. It's masterful what the NFL does. They have perfected this art of increasing the amount of time you spend thinking about their sport, even when it's not time for their sport. And that's hugely important in this new reality where sporting events are one of the only things us damn millennials will still watch live. So leagues across the country are following the NFL's lead by pushing all of this other content that their sport has to offer. The NBA televised every summer league game and the All-Star draft this year. UFC offers fights outside of their big pay-per-views and they televise the weigh-ins. MLB does the World Baseball Classic and, I mean, their games are 7 hours long, so they were already pushing it. They all want your eyeballs on their product as much as possible, even horse racing. This weekend marks the 145th Kentucky Derby, an event that has long been known as the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. But this year, I noticed, they're marketing it a little bit differently.
From the first call to the last call.
He's just awesome!
Join us on the first Saturday in May for the most exciting all-day party in sports. The Kentucky Derby next Saturday on NBC and NBCSN.
If Guy Fieri doesn't own a horse named Donkey Sauce, then what are we even doing? But so it went from 2 minutes to an all-day party. Okay, don't get me wrong. The argument can certainly be made that the Derby is an all-day event. There is plenty to do outside of the 2-minute actual race to hold our attention. The gates open at 8 a.m. You have roughly 11 hours to burn until the race. They start selling mint juleps immediately, and honestly, it shows. I've never been to the Kentucky Derby, but I've been there. That is the most exciting 30 seconds in sports. The Derby's own website suggests no fewer than a dozen different things to do to kill time, like watching the garland of roses arrive at the clubhouse gate, or visiting the VIP red carpet for 2.5 hours, where you can see celebrities wearing hats who are either very famous, or very high, or very famous for being high. But okay, maybe the idea of seeing Richie Sambora with your mom's haircut isn't that cool to you. You're wrong, but okay, there's other entertainment. The Derby event planners say that you can grab another mint julep and maybe a water, and you can go see what's happening with partygoers on the inside of the track. Spoiler alert, it's this. I mean, if there's anywhere that's going to qualify as a sport, it's at a place where you're going to watch horses run for less time than your last mint julep lasted. Speaking of which, where is that julep anyway? Better get another. Luckily, you don't have to worry about forgetting when the race starts because thanks to that time-honored tradition of the call to the post, played by the official bugler of Churchill Downs, a wonderful man with a wonderful sense of humor named Steve.
It's not an easy job.
You hope everything goes well, but, what if I take a breath in and swallow a bug?
At Churchill, he wears the red coat, riding hat, and boots.
I'll hear someone whisper, "Gosh, that's a big jockey." So I just say, I ride the Clydesdales.
I love that. He's a hand bugler. No, it's only funny when you make the jokes. Okay, I'm sorry, that's my bad. So, when you think about it, calling the Kentucky Derby an all-day event is a clever bit of marketing, but there is some truth to it. And I imagine the ultimate goal of horse racing here, like all those other sports, is to capture new fans that will continue to love and support horse racing all season long, not just at the Kentucky Derby, which is great. I just don't think that horse racing has fully thought through what all of those new eyeballs on the sport are going to see once they get in and start to have a look around.
We're following late-breaking news from Los Angeles tonight. The famed Santa Anita racetrack has canceled racing indefinitely.
Since December 26, 21 horses have died while training or racing. That's almost double the track's fatalities in all of 2018.
In fact, since that story aired last month, Santa Anita has shut down, reopened, and then added 2 more horses to the total. 23 horses is a lot of horses. To put that in context, remember in 2012 when that HBO show Luck got canceled after 1 season because so many horses died during filming? That was 3 horses. And if 3 seems like nothing compared to 23, well then let's go ahead and see what it feels like compared to the number of horses that died on racetracks in California when Luck was in production.
During that same period of time, there were 613 other horses at California racetracks that died. That's very, very difficult to justify.
Yes, I would say that's difficult to justify, and to American Pharoah, and to Secretariat, because all of their friends are dying. Now, before we get into this lovely little monologue about horses dying, I know that you might be sitting there thinking, what? Horses are dying? That's bad. Shut it down. Throw the sport away. And I totally get that. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I think you should have your own opinion. But I also think that it's important for those of us who are outsiders to the horse racing community to acknowledge that the sports that we love don't really have great track records either. The NFL has a massive issue with head injuries, one that they knew about and allegedly tried to cover up for years. Soccer, basketball, baseball all have had issues with racism in recent months. Not too long ago, I sat in this very seat and told you that 30 college kids have died since the year 2000 because of college football workouts. Sports are great, but they're also awful, which, now that I think of it, would have been a much better title for the show. The point is, screaming cancel it all feels great, but personally I just don't think that that is a realistic solution, given that this is an industry that employs over 1 million people. And that would mean that we've been letting a bunch of horse-murdering psychopaths run around with horses very publicly for a lot of years now, and honestly, that would kind of be on us. So with all of that being said, there is something clearly wrong in this sport. And if horse racing wants our eyeballs, especially those of us who have eyeballs that may like to gamble every now and then and know how to wink, then they need to get their together. And it does feel like they're at least starting to understand that. The LA County District Attorney's Office is forming a task force to investigate the deaths at Santa Anita Racetrack. The owners of the track, the Stronach Group, met with the California Horse Racing Board and have voted to approve new restrictions on the use of riding crops, which is a euphemism for the less ideal whips, and the use of race day medications like Lasix for horses. To be clear, because I was confused, Lasix is not cool horse eye surgery. It is this controversial diuretic that helps stop exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhaging, which is a thing in horses where they get blood in their lungs if they work out too hard. It might happen in humans, I wouldn't know, I've never tried it. But no one seems to be able to fully agree on if this is bad for horses, Lasix, or if it's great for horses. But I will say the United States and Canada are the only 2 countries who allow it to be administered to horses on the day of a race. So you could at the very least make the argument that the optics aren't great, which would be ironic because it's called Lasix. Anyway, those 2 rule changes are actually huge in the sport, but according to horse racing journalist Ray Pollock of the Pollock Report, they also highlight the fundamental issue with the American horse racing industry.
What's been going on at Santa Anita really demonstrates how dysfunctional we are as an industry to make change. In the NFL, all it takes is the team owners and the commissioners saying, okay, we're going to change the rules. In horse racing, the Stronach Group wants to change the rules at Santa Anita. Well, they can get that done with the blessing of the California Horse Racing Board. But if they want to change the rules in Maryland or in Florida, they've got to get different regulatory approval.
All right, so first of all, it speaks volumes about your sport if you look at the NFL and think, man, they've really got it all figured out. But the point there is that horse racing in America does not have a central governing body. Instead, how it works is that rules and regulations for each track are determined on a state-by-state basis, which means that rules like what drugs can be administered to a horse, when they can be administered, and how those rules are enforced can vary from one state to the next, which is not great for a sport that uses drugs like that kid you got placed with in freshman housing.
Why do racehorses break down at such high rates? Many point to a growing reliance on drugs. Some trainers experiment with illegal concoctions, cancer drugs, Viagra, even cobra venom.
Excuse me, what? Leaving the regulation of the cobra venom up to each individual state is a terrible idea for a number of reasons. I'm going to go ahead and let the former Maryland Jockey Club owner Joe DeFrancis tell you the first.
The reason for that is that the individual jurisdictions compete vigorously with each other to draw horses to their races. And the sort of unspoken dirty little secret is that permissive medication policy is one variable, one manner in which they compete. And so you get involved in this race to the bottom. And that's what we've become involved in over the course of the last 20, 25 years.
It's an important point, and I want to get back to it, but when he said race to the bottom, it got me thinking, it would be a great name for that porta potty race. But so what he's saying is that tracks being able to set their own rules creates an atmosphere that incentivizes bending those rules or maybe being a little bit more lax with them. I will give you an example. In 2012, the Aqueduct in Queens went through something similar to what Santa Anita is in the midst of right now. 21 horses died at the track between November and March. Crazy how common that is. A task force was put in place to investigate, and one of the issues that they found centered on claiming races, which are races where all of the horses participating are for sale. At the end of a claiming race, the horse will change owners, but the original owner gets to keep whatever money that horse won in that race. So at the Aqueduct, they found that because of an influx of cash from a newly added casino at the race course, the prize money for claiming races had become exponentially larger than the price of the horse, which is not how it's supposed to work. So owners were incentivized to run horses in those races who weren't ready, horses who were injured, horses who had run a bunch already, because they could just get a bunch of money, and added bonus, that horse was no longer their problem. So to fix it, the racetrack implemented a limit on the ratio of prize money to claiming price. Problem solved, right? Except no, because what happened was that other tracks just boosted their prize money to lure those people over there, and then the Aqueduct lost a bunch of business. And just a quick update on that now, just last year, the Aqueduct is considering loosening that restriction that was put in place because horses died, because according to the New York State Gaming Commission's equine medical director, a real job, quote, there was no scientific evidence to really prove that 4 times the purse to claim ratio was more dangerous than 2. That's convenient now. And you know what? Hey, maybe that's true, but as long as there's no central governing body to decide what is backed up with scientific evidence, it's a convenient excuse for anyone whose business is hurting while they're watching others thrive, even if it's at the expense of the damn horses. Another reason that state-by-state governance is stupid is because it allows consistent rule breakers to slip through the cracks.
New York-based trainer Rick Dutrow has logged 60-plus racing violations in his career. Last fall, investigators discovered these syringes, loaded with a powerful sedative, hidden in Dutrow's desk at his barn at Aqueduct Racetrack. The state has taken him up on charges. Kentucky has refused to even grant him a license, yet he continues to saddle horses regularly here in New York.
Small note, hidden in his desk. It seems a little generous there. He just had it in there. Like, I'm not hiding Post-it notes and pens. I put them in there because I need them to do my job. And if it's not yet clear that this current system is convoluted and ineffective, okay, then maybe you can tell me the difference between the Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and the National Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association. Or maybe you could tell me if the Coalition of Horse Racing Integrity has jurisdiction over the National Thoroughbred Racing Association, which should be noted is different from the Thoroughbred Racing Associations of North America, though I'm not entirely sure how. The solution here, to me, an outsider who just read about this for like 5 days straight, it seems kind of simple. Pick someone to be in charge, and then, hey, person I picked, you're in charge now. Just get that done. But turns out that they thought of that. Fine. And they tried it, and it's not working out.
Because we are a sea of individual jurisdictions, we have not been even remotely close to getting everyone on the same page. And I can say that with the utmost certainty, that will never happen. We need federal oversight, and we need it now.
Bobby Flay? Are you kidding me? That man once won an episode of Iron Chef by making a 5-course meal that all used a can of tuna. And even he can't make you guys work together? Yikes. That clip is from a 2016 hearing of the Congressional Horse Caucus. Who doesn't love a good horse caucus? But what Iron Chef Flay and the other members of the horse racing community are aiming for is the passage of the Horse Racing Integrity Act. It's a bill that was actually just reintroduced in March. The main goal of the bill is to create a national standard for drug testing in racehorses, seems obvious, and to appoint the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, which is more fun to say, to then oversee that. The bill has the support of the Jockey Club, the Breeders' Cup, the Humane Society, the Water, Hay, Oats Alliance, which is a real thing, just please let me keep powering through this. Triple Crown races like the Preakness, the Belmont Stakes, and one's missing. No Churchill Downs, no Kentucky Derby. The company actually refused to support it, and in a memo obtained by the New York Times, they suggested that having the support of the Humane Society is, quote, like letting the fox in the hen house. Which, I mean, I guess, but if I was that fox, I'd be pretty pissed off, because it's not as fun if you get in there and the hens are already euthanized. Look, I understand this issue is complicated, and I understand that both sides within the horse racing community say that they have the best interests of the horses in mind. But you guys have a very short amount of time to clean up this mess. And you've got 3 big televised events coming up over the next few weeks. And I just want to let you know, it is not a good look that the only thing you seem to be able to agree on as a sport is a list of 17 rules for naming a horse. I'm not joking. There are 17 rules for how to name your horse.
Names aren't just limited to the owner's creativity. The Jockey Club does have some rules. No 2 racehorses can ever have the same name. Each must be under 18 characters long. They can't be named after actual people, and the names cannot have offensive or vulgar meanings.
Flat, fleet, feet.
Is it in good?
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now this guy had to be a Sound of Music nut.
Okay, if he was a real Sound of Music nut, he would know that the song is just called Do, Re, Mi. Duh. If you want, you can find all 17 rules for naming your horse on the Jockey Club's website or on their very handy mobile app. You can also use that app to reserve a horse name. Then you get to have it for a year. And so I did that. And since Mo Salah hasn't answered my very reasonable amount of emails that I've sent him to ask if I could use his name, I decided that I would reserve the names Cobra, Cobra Venom, Lace 6, and Little Bloop Ill. It's Viagra. So what that means is that these can't be in horse racing for the next year, except unless I do it, and I don't have a horse. But don't tell them that. I'm gonna buy 3 horses. I'm reserving these because I'm gonna buy 3 horses. I just figured someone should probably do something about keeping these 3 things out of the sport, and so that's what I did. You're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome.
As 70,000 people sat in the dark together, watched or really not seen by an audience of millions.
It was something spectacular to behold, and both teams lived up to the hype.
The snow was coming, like Casey said. The wind was coming that way, left to right on your screen. It was all over the monitors. We had no replays, we had nothing. You couldn't see.
This was justice. Justice finally prevailed.
They played him perfectly, and he had a bad game.
Talk about asleep at the wheel. I got to tell you something right now. That is as inexcusable of a mistake as you can possibly make.
Got too cocky. Thought these guys was going to lay down.
There have been many occasions where I think he's shown he's unselfish, and he's willing to be unselfish, and he's willing to defer to some degree.
Let go of the reins under pressure a little bit more. Trust your teammates a little bit more. You'll relax and do better. Under pressure, I see him pulling too hard.
What do you want to be when the game is done, son? Because everybody has a choice to either deal with you or not. And that's why I think this kid is getting himself in a bad situation.
They've got to be much better, Neil, at the point of attack. They've got to be better.
The Warriors have always had this thing where they are much more vulnerable than they should be.
The Warriors look confused, and it's one of the few times I can say that they looked this unable to adjust.
It was foolish of him to do that. It was selfish of him to do that.
We know what he brings to the table. Prodigious talent, as you mentioned. I like that word. But again,
It's the cost.
You should feel great about it if you're a Ravens fan.
You should feel great about it if you're into mediocrity.
If you think she's on some kind of retirement swan song tour, well, I'll let you tell her that. And also, please give me 10 to 15 minutes to clear the room first.
I don't understand why these people on ESPN can't get it through their heads. Stick to sports, people. All right, we have all said something dumb on Twitter. Some of us more than others, Ashley. But there's a particular brand of, I'm just kidding, you never tweet. There's a particular brand of stupid thing that sports fans say on Twitter that bothers me the most. You already know what it is because we've done this segment before. It's when people log on to say that they could have done such and such athletic feat better than a professional athlete. No, you can't. So last time we did this, we flew out unsuspecting Twitter users who thought that they could kick field goals missed by college kickers. This time, in honor of the draft, we found a bunch of dudes who claimed that they could dominate the 40-yard dash. We flew them to New York for a surprise, and that surprise was great shame for their families. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you? I'm Katie.
Daryl.
Daryl, nice to meet you. You a big sports fan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Yeah, do you watch the draft?
Yes.
How about the combine?
Yes, 100%.
You watch 100% of the NFL combine?
Not all of it, just
Okay.
like clips,
Yeah.
highlights.
Did you ever tweet about it?
Yes, I think so.
Can you go ahead and read this tweet for me?
I really want to know how I would fare in the 40-yard dash. Confident I could run a 4.4 time.
What was that last part?
I'm confident I could run a 4.4 time.
Confident you could run a 4.4 time. You're Odell Beckham Jr.? That's what you think?
100%.
Yeah, 100%. All right, do you want to put it to the test?
Let's do it.
Okay, give me the tweet. Go over there. So you either got a 5.4 or a 5.5. How does that feel?
I still think that's pretty fast.
Do you still think you could run a 4.4
Maybe with a little more practice.
at running? Do you run? Are you a runner?
Yeah, I do. I go to the gym 6 days a week.
Wow. And you got a 5.5.
I'm also 180, so might.
I'll factor that into your stats for sure. Oh my God. He's ready to go.
Hello.
I'm Katie.
I'm Michael.
Nice to meet you. What do you think you're doing here? You have any idea?
Well, I figured with the facility and the way they had us dressed, we were going to be doing something like the combine. So I've had like 8 of these today. I could probably run a 4.40.
That's so funny because I was going to have you read this, but you essentially just said the same. Can you just read it out loud for the camera?
Had a 32-ounce Starbucks today. Pretty sure I could do the 40-yard dash in 4.3 at the NFL combine right now.
Okay, let's see how it goes. Let me have the
This
tweet.
is what pros wear.
Is it?
Sure.
All right.
Watch the tape.
You're going to head over to those cones. I'm going to meet you at the finish line. I'll throw this away.
Oh, I just pulled a hammy. Ah!
Come on, baby. Come
Camps are rolling down. Oh, good God.
You slowed down at the finish.
Oh.
7-1, man. Not great. I think the slowest time that's happened in recent memory at the combine was like a 6 flat.
You really know how to make a guy feel good. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Katie.
Danny.
Danny, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. Do you ever tweet about the combine?
I believe so, yes.
Do you remember off the top of your head what tweets you said?
I think it was something to do with the 40-yard dash.
Yeah? You don't remember what it was specifically?
Not exactly.
Oh, darn, if only I had it printed out on a card and asked you to read it.
I think I could run the 4.5 in the 40-yard dash, so it's on in the hotel hallway.
You really think that?
I guess maybe we'll see.
Are you ready to go?
I am.
All right, I'll take that. Actually, I have a better idea. Okay, so just to remind you, you said you'd run a 4.5. Cool? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Wait a second, sir. 3, 2, 1, go.
Ow.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
The mat was there. You didn't even need it. What happened at the end there?
Tripped. On the
It
line.
happens. It happens. I mean, hotel hallway is not an ideal place to run a 40.
No. Not as ideal as it sounded when I tweaked, but no.
Yeah. Probably why they do it at the track. You know, makes a little bit more sense now. So 6.25. How do you feel?
Could have been better.
Obviously.
Maybe you were a little late on the time.
Oh, that's not gonna fly here. So what did you learn here today?
Players in the NFL are freaks of nature, way more athletic, and it's a learning experience.
Never run again. I apologize sincerely to my family and everyone for this embarrassing adventure.
What would you say to anyone who is thinking about tweeting that they could do this?
Probably don't unless you want to end up on the show with Katie Nolan.